read all the Bridgerton books. I am so happy I finally did it. I read all 8 books. So if you don't know already, I love the Bridgerton show so much. After I saw the first season, I've rewatched it like 3 times now. But after I heard it had a book series, like it was based off book series, I was like, I need to read them all. So I read the first book already, and I did a whole video on that, comparing the first book to the first season of Bridgerton. So you can definitely go check that out. I will link that in the description box below. So I will be going through each book and telling you a little bit about what each book is about. I will not be giving spoilers, but I do want to let you know that some of the books in the descriptions, even on like the back of the books when they describe it, the little synopsis, does give a little hint to who some of the characters end up with. So if you don't want to know that, then maybe you should wait. But I'm just going to give a short description of the 2 main characters of each love story and go in and let you know a little bit about that. But other than that, there will not be any spoilers on these books. Okay, the first book is The Duke and I. Of course, I'm not going to be going into too much detail on this. Like I said, I already did a whole video on this. And there's a first season on Netflix about this book as well. But if you didn't know, this book is about Simon and Daphne, and they enter into a fake relationship to help each other out. She wants more guys to be interested in her so she can get a good match and find a husband, and then he wants all the women and all the girls to stay away from him because he does not want to get married. So they enter into a fake relationship to try to help each other out. And then, yada, 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 end up falling in love. Book number 2 focuses on the oldest Bridgerton, which is Anthony. And he decides that he is ready to get married and find a woman to be his wife, to be the Viscountess to his Viscount. He is not marrying for love. He just wants a wife so that he can have a family and kind of do his duty, but he's not looking to marry for love. And so he decides to go after the diamond of the season, and that ends up being Edwina. And she is the diamond of the season, but her sister is determined to keep her away from Anthony because she heard that Anthony's kind of a rake. So Kate and Anthony kind of have an enemies to lovers type of relationship. They both hate each other at the very, very beginning, and they can't stand each other. He doesn't like how she's trying to keep him away from her sister, and she doesn't like him because he's a rake. But yeah, this is an enemies to lovers type romance. So if you like that type of trope, I would definitely check this one out. Book number 3 is An Offer from a Gentleman. This book follows the second oldest Bridgerton, which is Benedict, who is the second son. And this one's also kind of like a Cinderella retelling a little bit. So Sophie doesn't come from very wealthy background, and she also has, like, because Cinderella, evil stepmother, and she has to sneak into this ball, and it is a Bridgerton ball. So she sneaks into the Bridgerton ball, masquerade ball of course, and that is where she meets Benedict. And Benedict sees her, but he only sees the mask, and he's like, who's this masked woman? And he's like, I need to find who she is. And instead of a shoe, she drops like a glove. Super cute. Drops a glove, and so he's trying to find who's the owner of this glove, who is this woman. So she ends up knowing, when they meet, ends up knowing who he is because he tells her his name is Benedict and he's a Bridgerton and all that stuff, but she never tells him his name. So he's like searching for her, and all he has is this glove that she had left. And they end up meeting again later, but he doesn't recognize her. And that makes sense. The last time he saw her, she was in a mask. He didn't really know her name, didn't see her face, but she knows who he is. So they kind of meet each other again and get to know each other. But he is still in love with this woman that he met at the ball with the mask on, who is Sophie, but he doesn't know that, and she is not telling him. So we kind of get to see that relationship grow and see if he realizes who Sophie really is. And like I said, he comes from a background, he has money, and he's a Bridgerton, but she doesn't really have anything to her name. And so we get to see how that dynamic plays out in their relationship and getting to know each other as well. Book number 4 focuses on Colin Bridgerton and Penelope Featherington. And the book 4 is romancing Mr. Burgerton. So the Bridgertons and the Featheringtons, they are pretty close families, or like they know of each other. They've been friendly throughout the years. A lot of the siblings are friends, so they know each other and they have a pretty decent relationship. And Colin has always been nice to Penelope, and they've been kind of like growing up as friends. They've always kind of been friends growing up. And so Penelope always kind of had a crush on Colin, but I think after a while she's like, okay, he's never gonna have those feelings for me. So she kind of like gave up on that crush, and Colin kind of always saw her as a friend. But then after a while, Colin comes back and he starts to see Penelope in a different light. So then we get to see how their relationship develops and to see them like friends to lovers and that type of trope. So this was a story I really did enjoy, just seeing Penelope and Colin like kind of know each other in a different way. Book number 5 is To Sir Philip with Love, and this focuses on the story of Eloise Bridgerton. So kind of book 3, 4, and 5 kind of overlap. So Eloise has been writing this guy, and they have been sending letters back and forth, and he kind of proposes marriage to her. And she decides she can't really marry someone she's never met. So she decides to go visit him and get to know him and see if they would be a good match and if this would be a good marriage. And he meets her. He's like, oh, she's so beautiful, but she won't stop talking. So she's always talkative. She's like kind of the opposite of him. She's like very talkative, a breath of fresh air in their house. He's more not cold, but he's more like a stoic guy, not really bubbly personality, more to the facts. They're like opposites. And so they both are like, oh, maybe this isn't a relationship or a match that would work out in the end. In letters, they seem to fit very well, but when they met each other and finally saw each other in person, they didn't really mesh as well as they had hoped. He was looking for someone to help him be a wife, and he thought she was a good match. She thought he would be a good match as well, and they're like, oh, this is not gonna work out. But then as they get to know each other and try to figure each other out more, we get to see this relationship and romance blossom between them. So even though they are opposites, she's talkative, he's quiet, he's more strict, she's more go with the flow, more bubbly, and like goes by her own rules. She's very independent woman, and he can't really control her. And I think that works for both of them. So that this is a story that you can see that relationship develop. Okay, so the next book, book 6, When He Was Wicked. This one focuses on Francesca Bridgerton. The main story is Francesca, and then we see this other guy, Michael Sterling. And Michael Sterling, he's a rake. And then he sees Francesca, and he's like, oh my goodness, that's the woman. Like, he like falls in love with her. But then it turns out she's getting married, and she's actually marrying his cousin. So he's like, okay, she's completely off limits. Him and his cousin, they grew up and they were almost like brothers. That's how close they are. So he would never do anything to jeopardize that relationship. But he had to keep his distance and set boundaries and know that Francesca is with his cousin and not with him. Something ends up happening to his cousin, and now the relationship between him and Francesca has changed. So he kind of just leaves and distances himself even more from her. And then later he comes back just years later to see how everything's going, to just like come back and visit his home and everything like that. And we kind of see how they went from like friends to kind of strangers, and now they're becoming friends again. And then we see how that relationship between them develops. Book number 7, It's in His Kiss, follows Hyacinth Bridgerton. So in this book we see Hyacinth and then we see Gareth. They don't really hate each other, but they're like not too fond of each other. And the reason they end up getting closer is because Gareth found this diary, a family diary from his brother, and it looks like it was written by one of his ancestors, by his grandmother, and it's only written in Italian. He doesn't know Italian, so he has to try to find someone. It turns out that Hyacinth knows how to read Italian a little bit, so she decides to help him out with this diary and to figure out what secrets it may contain of his family's past. So they're both kind of working together and getting to know each other by trying to figure out and decipher this Italian language of this diary, and to figure out what everything means in the secret coding within this book. And the last book, On the Way to the Wedding, this one features Gregory Bridgerton and Lady Lucinda Abernathy. So Gregory, he actually has his eyes set for Miss Hermione Watson, and he's like, oh my goodness, that's the one. She's the one I'm gonna marry. It turns out she's already in love with someone else. And her best friend, Lady Lucinda Abernathy, figures out that Gregory is into Hermione, and Lucinda does not want Hermione to be in love with this other guy. So she decides to help Gregory Bridgerton win Hermione over so that he and Hermione can be together, and so that Hermione won't be in love with this other guy. But while Lucinda is helping Gregory, she ends up falling for him. But even though she has feelings for him, she's still going to help him try to get Hermione, because that's what he wants, and he's in love with Hermione. And then Gregory, as he's doing this and Lucinda is helping him, he figures out she's kind of more fit for him and he's matches him better and they would be a better match and they get along really well. And so he's like, is it too late to be with Lady Lucinda? And so he kind of figures out, I think Lucinda's the one for me. The thing is, Lucinda is already engaged and to be married and she's going to be having her wedding soon, and Gregory just found out. He's like, oh, I think she's the one for me. Now he has to see if he can get there in time and confess his love to her. So yeah, that's the last book of this series, all 8 books. I think there's different tropes and something in there for everyone. So if you like different things like enemies to lovers, if you like friendship romances, if you like the fake relationship, is a little bit of a trope for everyone, in my opinion. One thing I really liked about the series is that it features a different couple in each book. It's like they're standalones, kind of. Like, even though it is a series, it's like each book is a standalone. If I mentioned this before, when you get to book 3 to 5, a lot of the stories kind of overlap within those 3 books. So those I would suggest reading in order, but the other ones, throughout the series, they do mention past characters when you read the later books, but honestly, each book is kind of like its own romance, its own couple, its own standalone book. Out of the entire series, I would have to say my favorites were On the Way to the Wedding, and then it's In His Kiss. I think I like those more because they kind of had like a little mystery or like a puzzle that needed to be solved throughout the story of both of those books. And I think because it had that little extra thing in it, I enjoyed those even more. I did enjoy the rest of them and I did love the romance, but I think as I was reading throughout the series and these had like a little mystery or like a little puzzle or something that made you think or like what is going on, I think I enjoyed those 2 the most. So if I'm rating these from my favorite to least favorite, I would be number 1 would be On the Way to the Wedding. Number 2, It's In His Kiss. Number 3, To Sir Philip with Love. Number 4, The Viscount Who Loved Me. Number 5, Romancing Mr Burgerton. Number 6, When He Was Wicked. Number 7, The Duke and I. Number 8, An Offer from a Gentleman. To me, it's really interesting how I rated The Duke and I so low because I really loved the first season and that's what made me start reading all these books. But I think maybe because I saw the series first and then read the book, that might be a reason. But honestly, I think the other stories, if they're as good as how I read them, I'm so excited. Lowest rated one, An Offer from a Gentleman. I did enjoy some parts of this love story and I think it was cute how it's kind of like a Cinderella retelling. But there were also some parts of this relationship I did not enjoy. And I think because of those moments, that is why this one is my lowest rated. I also really enjoyed Eloise's love story as well. Watching the first season, I was interested to see what her love story would be like. And just from seeing how she's portrayed on the show and then reading the book, to me, they didn't quite match. And so I'm interested to see how her character will develop into the person within this book, into having this love story. If I did not see the series, like, I still love that story overall. I love that story and the 2 people in it. It's just how she was portrayed in the TV show and how like that relationship comes to be. It didn't really match. So I was a little confused, but like if I didn't see her character in that show, that really wouldn't bother me, but I loved the actual love story. So I kind of tried to imagine Eloise as not being 100% Eloise from the show, and that made me like the story really a lot more. But yeah, so that's one I'm really interested to see, but I really enjoyed that actual story overall. But I'm just I don't know how that's going to work with the character of Eloise because she seems more of a woman who wouldn't get married and very independent. So, we'll see. So yeah, that is the entire Bridgerton series of the 8 books. I had a really good time reading all of them. I will definitely be rereading these books later. I love period pieces and I love historical romance. I love romance as a genre. It's my favorite. So if you like historical romance, if you like period pieces, I would definitely suggest reading these or trying these out because you might enjoy them. If they're not your cup of tea, understandable, not for everyone. So maybe they're not for you. It is an 8-book series of all different love stories, so maybe it is something you will enjoy. I am interested to see following seasons. It did get renewed up to season 4. As those seasons come out, I'll probably be doing the book versus TV show for each one and going more in depth within each series, within each book. But for now, just want to give you a general synopsis. I finished all 8 and I'm so happy, and I can't wait to see the rest of the Bridgerton seasons. So if you have read the books in the Bridgerton series, what did you think? Did you like them? Did you hate them? Which ones were your favorite? Which ones were your least favorite? And are you excited for the upcoming seasons of the show? Again, I will be linking my website down below so you can see more TV content there. I will also be linking, as I said before, my book versus TV show for the Bridgerton. First book, The Duke and I, if you want to check that one out and more in depth of what I thought about that particular book. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I would love to see what you guys think about the books, or if you have any recommendations for TV shows based off books, I would love to hear those as well. But until next time, bye!